In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness, to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. End quote. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 13. In the last episode, I mentioned the translation of logos to English. In almost all translations, it is translated to be word. In the beginning was the Word. Yet, contextually, word suggests meaning. Jesus is the meaning. He is the one who illuminates humanity of the meaning of existence. That is, in the beginning was the meaning, and the meaning was with God, and the meaning was God. Jesus is the meaning. He is the one who illuminates humanity of the meaning of existence. He comes to represent the ordering principle of reality. Just as the infinite complexities of an object can be represented with the simplicity of a single word, the infinite complexities of God can be represented with the simplicity of a single man, that man being Jesus Christ. The purpose of creation is then represented in Christ. He is, according to the Gospels, the purpose for which God chose to create the universe, or at least he is the representation of the purpose. That is, to give, to sacrifice, and to love. This is, according to Christian theology, why God created the universe. And this is Jesus' cosmological mission and what the Christ story tells us. For not only are these things the purpose of creation, but they stand as purpose themselves, the weight of the cosmos resting on the shoulders of God's only begotten Son. So Jesus preaches the Word, the meaning. He preaches the meaning of all things, who we are, where we came from, and where we must go. In his death, the spirit of that meaning, the Spirit of God, may be resurrected within us. In the last episode, we left off at the Last Supper, the end of the Last Supper. It is here where we begin the last and most important part of the story of Jesus, that is, his death and resurrection. In Christian theology, the belief in the death and resurrection of Jesus is the fundamental backbone of their faith. Belief in this, to many theologians and ordinary preachers alike, is the gateway to humanity's salvation. As you already know, I am not a Christian. I am an agnostic, going through the Gospels from a philosophical point of view. And as such, this series has never seen it in this way. I've never tried to interpret the Gospels in these ways, as that's how they're already interpreted, right? That's already the standard way to view Christianity from a holistic perspective, is that Jesus is the message, right? Now, in my own interpretation and how we're diving into this topic from an absurdist lens, right, from an existential lens, is that his death and resurrection stand as an allegory. It is the representation of God's death on earth and his resurrection in heaven, the loss of faith and the finding of knowledge, or gnosis, as one might say. To understand what I mean, let me explain Plato's allegory of the cave. The allegory, written in Plato's Republic, is a tale about abandoning illusions and finding truth with a capital T. In the allegory, men are chained to a wall within a dark cave. They are unable to see beside them and can only stare at the wall in front of them. Up above and behind them is a fire, where horses, men, and various objects go in front of it, producing shadows upon the cave wall. These shadows are all these men know of the world. Their world is shadows, only shadows. That is, what they see of the world is only a representation of the world, and that representation is one not shaped by light, but rather the absence of light. In other words, they live in ignorance. One day a man is set free from his chains. As such, he climbs to the top of the cave and leaves it, entering the light of the sun. The light, at first, is blinding and painful. He wonders if he should return, yet, as his eyes adjust, he is encountered by the beauty of the real world. Everything is three-dimensional, not flat. Everything is lit up, not dark. The world is beautiful and infinite, and, most importantly, real. Naturally, he wants to return to the cave to tell the prisoners about the real world. When he does, they don't believe him. They call him crazy. For at this point, his eyes are now adjusted to the light of the sun, not the darkness. So in the dark, he can barely see the shadows any longer. How could the prisoners trust a man who can no longer see their entire reality? More or less, Plato's allegory represents the man who encounters the truth. It is the tale of the philosopher, poet, and prophet. Jesus, in almost all regards, is the man who escaped the cave. He witnessed the true light of the sun. As he preaches this light to the world is unable to receive him. This is what is described at the beginning of John. That is, quote, "The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God." The man who returns to the cave is bringing knowledge of the light to his own people, but his own people reject him. If they did accept him, then they too could join him in the light of the sun. But they don't. Jesus' death, then, it represents the death of the man who knows the light, the man who is the light. As such, it is the death of light itself, the loss of hope that man can ever transcend the shadows upon the cave wall and encounter the light of reality. It follows that his resurrection is that one of the prisoners shall remember what he said before he was crucified, that the prisoner will free himself and climb out of the cave to witness the light and know the true world, the real world. Conversely, his death is the death of the shadow world, and his resurrection is the rebirth one experiences as they encounter the light. Whether you doubt the existence of the light or you believe it, all is the same if you do not unchain yourself and climb out of the cave. Blind faith, therefore, is useless to the one who seeks the way, the truth, and the life. After all, once you see the light, there is no longer any blindness, for it is in the witnessing of the sun that the whole world becomes real. Once you see the light, you cannot unsee it. The Gospels give us an example of the ideal man and how we may become like him. They almost draw back to Genesis, when the gods fear humanity will become like them, and turns this on its head. Jesus becomes the fruit of knowledge, but he is not forbidden by God, but rather by the people. It is Satan and the forces of evil which forbid the knowledge which Jesus offers. And as he taught in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus does not resist the forces of evil through evil. He does not fight fire with fire, for his war, his battle, is spiritual in nature. And so, following the Last Supper, Jesus does not resist arrest when Judas betrays him. Instead, he lets Judas betray him. He says, "Friend, do what you came to do." And when they seize him, a disciple cuts the ear off one of the men, a literal turning of Jesus' common phrase, "For those who have ears, let them hear." And Jesus tells his disciple to back down, saying, "Those who fight by the sword die by the sword." Jesus, as the tree of knowledge, is allowing himself to be burnt. Yet he does so knowing that his death will plant seeds in the minds of men, seeds that will grow as the mustard seed does, into large, sprawling, beautiful trees. His war is fought within. He cannot give in to evil nor sin. He must let his death come and enter it willingly. In a sense, he is like Sisyphus, whose greatest defiance against the gods is his happiness, that he finds meaning in the meaninglessness of his task. Jesus defies Satan and the humanly evils by willingly going into death. He shows Judas and the priestly class that he is not afraid of death. That is, he represents the victory over sin, evil, and death. When Jesus stands before Pilate, he is asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" To which Jesus replies, "You have said so." To all the other questions he gives only silence. It is so that the crowd condemns Jesus, and he is sentenced to be crucified. The guards tie together a crown of thorns and place it on his head to mock him as the king of the Jews. At this point, they nail him to the cross. He dies a painful, excruciating death, and is resurrected 3 days later. I'll read the whole of this ending, paraphrased, starting from chapter 27, verse 24. However, I want to read Nietzsche's parable of the madman first, as it will be a critical part of our analysis and final conclusion on the meaning of the Jesus story. Here goes, the madman. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, "I seek God, I seek God." As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. "Has he got lost?" asked one. "Did he lose his way like a child?" asked another. "Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrated?" Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. "Whither is God?" he cried. "I will tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained the earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually? Backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods, too, decompose. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives? Who will wipe this blood off of us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here the madman fell silent and looked again at his listeners, and they too were silent and stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went out. I have come too early, he said then. My time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering. It has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time. The light of the stars requires time. Deeds, though done, still require time to be seen and heard. This deed is still more distant from them than most distant stars, yet they have done it themselves. It has been related further that on the same day the madman forced his way into several churches. Led out and called to account, he is said always to have replied nothing but, "What after all these churches now, if they are not the tombs and sepulchres of God?" End reading. Let that sit for a moment. Perhaps even pause it if you have to. Nietzsche is describing an earth-shattering event that has the exact same magnitude as the death of Jesus. I read it to you to emphasize what the death of Jesus represents, that is, the death of God. You can tell that Nietzsche wrote his parable to directly compare it to the death of Jesus, with phrases such as, "Who will wash this blood from our hands?" and "All of us are his murderers." The madman calls to a crowd who doesn't receive him, who doesn't understand him. No one understands that God is dead, just as no one understands they are killing God when they nail Jesus to the cross. With that, here is the last bit of Matthew's Gospel, paraphrased. So when Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See it yourselves." And all the people answered, "His blood be on us and our children." Then having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him, and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, Jesus, King of the Jews." And they spit on him, and took the reed, and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, and put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, "This man is calling Elijah." And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice, and yielded up his spirit. As an aside, this is where Nietzsche might say, God is dead, and we killed him. But I'll continue. "Behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." When it was evening, a rich man came named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven, and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen." And he said, "Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you." So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them, and said, "Greetings." And they came up, and took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." End reading. Jesus lived during the height of the Roman Empire. In this time, although everyone believed in gods of some sort, it was highly materialistic. People cared about status, wealth, and power. God and spirituality was dying. And Jesus' lament in Matthew 23 reflects this terminal spiritual illness. So when Jesus comes to preach, he awakens in the people something that before lay dormant. He cured the spiritual blindness and deafness and paralysis of the people. In that, he gave them life. A life not nourished by bread alone, but from spirit, faith, and God. So when he is sentenced to death, Pilate understands the gravity of this sentence. He is killing the representation of God on earth. That is, he understood that spirituality was dying on earth, and that Jesus was working to resurrect it. As such, killing Jesus was akin to killing God. So he washes his hands as if to rid himself of guilt. But the people know what has been done. They know that his blood is on them and their children. Or as Nietzsche puts it, "We have killed him, you and I, and all of us are his murderers." And there is no amount of water that could rid this blood from their hands. The crucifixion of Jesus is an earth-shattering event. It is the untethering of the earth from the sun. Likewise, it is gut-wrenchingly nihilistic. He truly is crucified, and God does not come to rescue him. Instead, Jesus dies on the cross with his last words being, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then comes an earthquake, and the temple falls, the dead rise, and many now wonder, was he truly the Son of God? This represents the fall of God, the rupture in the earth that his massive corpse had caused. Yet, in this death comes the resurrection. Like lightning, Jesus appears as an angel before Mary Magdalene, and he declares the return of Jesus. He comes to his disciples and tells them to preach his gospel throughout the lands. The ending isn't final, but rings the hope that Jesus still walks among us, that God isn't dead. But this was 1,700 years before the Enlightenment, before the age of science. Whatever materialism they had in the time of Jesus was nothing compared to what would come from the Enlightenment. What came out of the Enlightenment was an ultra-individualism, a godless world where even the religious only worship the corpse of God. This, Nietzsche thought, was the death of God. It was something atheists took as a matter of fact. Of course God is dead. He doesn't even exist. But no, the death of God was not the birth of atheism. Atheism has always existed. The death of God that Nietzsche refers to is the loss of society's ability to be spiritual. It is the total spiritual castration of humanity. This death of God the madman preaches was the lightning, and now I believe we are seeing the thunder. Everything today is curated. If you are curious, there is always an answer one ChatGPT prompt away. All mental illnesses are reduced to chemical imbalances in the brain. The world is reduced to equations. The emptiness in your life is reduced to a series of bad habits and unsustainable routines. All art is commodified. God enlightenment is said to be reached by praying harder, or by following certain techniques better, or going to a $5,000 magic mushroom retreat. The world is optimized towards hedonism and efficiency. Nothing, not science, not the news, not a single politician, nor any ideology can even be believed in anymore. We live in an era of total nihilism and cynicism, infinite information, no thinking, no wonder. God is dead, and we killed him. But to that, Nietzsche asks us to consider, must we ourselves not become God simply to appear worthy of the horrible deed of which we have done? That is, if God is dead, then must we become like God? Must we resurrect the Spirit of God within ourselves? Must we reflect the ideal of ideals, the man above man? The story of Jesus is one that has been torn apart and dissected and contorted and twisted for 2 millennia. Some in good ways and some in bad ways. I believe the modern church does a great disservice to Jesus, his message, and what his story represents. Many of their teachings act as a second crucifixion, one that crucifies our spirits too. Yet, what is said in the Gospels tells a very simple story. It is a story about a man who wishes to show the world the kingdom of heaven. It is a story about a man who seeks to bring God to earth by exemplifying the qualities of a loving, merciful, forgiving Creator. It is the story about the death of man and the resurrection of the divine, the end of nihilism and the birth of the Spirit. As such, Jesus is what it means to become like God. In the face of nihilism and death, Jesus stands defiant against all odds. He looks meaninglessness in the face and he smiles. He sees the flesh and the kingdoms of men as what they are, dust. And like dust they are divided. Like dust they blow in the wind and cease to exist. But what exists in the spirit, in the hearts of men, is not dust but light, and light overcomes all darkness. It is eternal and everlasting. Jesus then, like Sisyphus, acts as a rebel against the meaninglessness of existence. He is a testament to the kingdom of heaven which lies within every human heart, if only we open our ears to the word and our eyes to the light. He is divinity made into flesh and spoken through the philosophy of the Gospels. But his message is not one that can be understood in a book, nor learned from any man. It is what one sees at the sight of all beautiful things. For in beauty all things are made unified. With that, let's consider the madman once more. I'd like to imagine, and perhaps I must imagine, that one day he came across a sunset so beautiful that he said through tears of joy, God is dead and we are his resurrection. Thank you for listening.